My name is Claire Smith. I'm Nancy Sullivan.
The best videos in the best subscribes. The best videos who have the best views. I know this one.
This is how he lost. Most people go their whole lives without having a single near-death experience because they don't know how to put themselves in stupid situations. When they see a cliff, they think,
I probably shouldn't try hanging off that.
but because of my lack of brain cells, I've collected near-death experiences like Pokemon cards throughout my life, including the one I just put at the very beginning of this video. But before I tell you that story, we gotta talk about the... Most people go their whole lives without having a single near-death experience because they don't know how to put themselves in stupid situations. When they see a cliff, they think,
I probably shouldn't try hanging off that.
but because of my lack of brain cells, I've collected near-death experiences like Pokemon cards throughout my life, including the one I just put at the very beginning of this video. But before I tell you that story, we gotta talk about the Pennywise incident. So the first time I almost got sent to the gulag all happened because of the movie It. Now, if you've never watched this movie, the main character, Pennywise the Clown, lives in the sewers while eating children. But in the movie, he's always popping through these storm drains, spying on the kids. So after I saw this, instead of having a normal human reaction like, wow, I should surely stay away from those storm drains, my brain decided, you know what? I kind of want to see what it's like to go in a storm drain myself. And lucky for me, there happened to be one right outside my house. So one day, when I didn't see anyone outside walking around in my neighborhood, I decided this was the moment. I walked up to the storm drain and I've been wanting to go in for weeks, and I peeked inside it. It was big enough for me to climb into, but I couldn't see what was at the bottom of it with just my weak phone flashlight. But I figured it couldn't be that far of a drop if I went in, so when the moment was right and the coast was clear, I climbed down into the drain. My body was now fully inside, and I was hanging onto it with my hands. I could now see that the bottom was about a 2-foot drop, so I let go of my grip and dropped down to the bottom. It was working perfectly. It felt so cool to be at the bottom of the storm drain. But you may be wondering, Tyler, when is the part where you actually almost die? Well, the second my feet hit the bottom, I looked up and realized I had a problem. There was no ladder to get back up. No steps, no rope, no convenient climbing apparatus of any kind. Just smooth concrete walls and daylight mocking me from way up above. Now you may be thinking, Tyler, of course it wouldn't have any way to get back up. It's a storm drain. It's not meant for people to go into. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't think about that. And once I found out there was no way back up, I figured out I was stuck. The panic started setting in slowly. First, I was just like, okay, this is fine. I can figure this out because I've seen maintenance workers being here before, so obviously there's got to be some way out, right? But then it was like, okay, I don't see any way to get out. And after a couple more minutes, now I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die in here. And at this point, you may be saying to yourself,
Okay, yeah, the situation kind of sucks, but you're not gonna actually die in there. Stop being dramatic. Like, eventually, someone will get you out.
well, give me 1 minute and I'll explain to you why that was not the case. Because when I got stuck, I tried jumping first to get out. Just jump really high and grab the edge. The only problem was the edge was like 8 feet above me and I could maybe jump 4 inches on a good day. Then I tried the Spider-Man approach. You know, where you press your feet and hands against the walls and then shimmy up. I'd seen it done in movies. It looked totally doable. So I pressed my feet against one wall and my hands against the other and tried to climb. That lasted approximately 3 seconds before I found out I'm out of shape. So I did the only thing I could do. I yelled for my mom. And when I say I yelled, I mean I yelled. I was screaming, Mom! Mom, help me! just hoping my voice would somehow reach her inside the house. Of course, she didn't hear me. She was probably inside the house making dinner, using that disgusting crock pot, which I still despise, but that's another story. Anyways, I was down there for probably 5 minutes, just screaming into the void, my voice echoing off the concrete walls, kind of scared, but at this point, I still wasn't worried. But then, I felt something fall onto my head. I touched my head to see what it was, and it felt wet. I didn't think much of it until I felt another drop on top of my head, and then another, until after a couple seconds, I realized it was starting to rain outside, and I could now see drops falling through the opening above me, and that's when the panic really hit. If it rains really hard, and this drain fills all the way up, I'm gonna drown, so I knew I was probably cooked. Luckily, some people were going for a walk in the rain, just a nice couple taking an afternoon stroll, and they heard this kid screaming bloody murder from underground. So they came over to the storm drain, looked down, and saw me standing there looking like a wet rat, and I was just like, hey guys, can you get my mom? She lives at that house right there. They were probably so confused, but bless their hearts, they didn't ask any questions. They were just like, okay, we'll go over to your house. So they knock on the door, explain the situation, and my mom comes sprinting out of the house when these strangers told her what happened. I like to imagine that there was a brief moment where she thought they were joking, but then she came over, looked down, made eye contact with me, and I watched her face go through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. First there was confusion, then realization, and then disappointment, and finally anger. She asked me how I got down there, and I just said, can you ask questions later when I'm...
Brandon Coley, Jablonski Auto Body, LLC.
What'd she call her? Oh, we actually sold the twins naming rights.
You know, like stadiums do. Very lucrative.
Oasis Reeves Cannon
The
Spa.
right money moves aren't as absurd as you think.
Disappointment, and finally, anger. She asked me how I got down there, and I just said, can you ask questions later when I'm not getting drenched by sewer water that's filling up by the second? She agreed, but she didn't know how to get me out. We couldn't fit a ladder through there. She wasn't strong enough to just throw me a rope and pull me up, so she ended up doing the only thing she could think of, calling the fire department. So now there's fire trucks showing up to my house. Multiple fire trucks, actually. Neighbors started coming out to see what was happening. The firefighters arrived, and to their credit, they were very professional. They didn't laugh at me, at least not to my face. I wouldn't have blamed them if they laughed at me behind the scenes, but they addressed the situation and had to build a makeshift ladder just to get me out. They pulled me out of that drain covered in a mix of dirt and sewer water, which probably meant I was covered in all the neighbors' dookie. So just remember, if you're scared of Pennywise, that man literally lives in people's dookie. That's just embarrassing, but not as embarrassing as this next story. Now this one isn't technically about me almost dying, but it's about another person almost dying and it being my fault. This also happened when I was 7 years old, and I think this story is worse because if my stupidity hurts me, oh well, but my stupidity hurting other people is where I draw the line. So let me explain what happened. My grandpa suffered a stroke, which was obviously really serious and scary for the whole family. He was in the hospital for over a month, just recovering, doing physical therapy, trying to get back to normal. And we'd go visit him pretty regularly because that's what you do when family's in hospital. He could barely speak and literally had no control over the whole left side of his body. But here's the thing, sitting in a hospital room for hours with nothing to do is absolute torture when you're 7 years old. Like there's only one TV and it's on The Price is Right 24 hours a day. That's all your grandpa wants to watch. There's no toys. There's nothing to do except sit there and watch old people sleep. Or you can watch the nurses you want to marry check Graham's vitals every 20 minutes. Me out. They pulled me out of that drain covered in a mix. Now this one is in a hospital room for hours with nothing to do is absolute torture when you're 7 years old. Like there's only one TV and it's on The Price is Right 24 hours a day because that's all your grandpa wants to watch. There's no toys. There's nothing to do except sit there and watch old people sleep. Or you can watch the nurses you want to marry check Graham's vitals every 20 minutes. My grandpa shared a room with another patient who was in a coma. Unfortunately, that man didn't have family visit him as often as our family would. So sometimes we would use stuff from his side of the room. One day, while we were visiting, I reached peak boredom. I counted all the ceiling tiles. I read all the posters on the walls about washing your hands. I memorized the pattern on the floor. I needed some form of entertainment badly. But that's when I noticed that on the other patient's side, the guy in a coma, there was a chair, a pretty comfortable looking chair, and nobody was sitting in it. The guy was unconscious, so he certainly wasn't going to use it, and all the chairs on my grandpa's side were taken. But I was tired of standing. So while my family wasn't paying attention, I snuck over to that side and sat down in this chair like I just discovered a secret lounge. I was going to sit there and play games on my iPad like I had been doing for the past 2 weeks. But there was only one problem. My iPad was about to die. The battery was in the red zone, so I needed to charge it immediately because I was trying to play some Fruit Ninja. This was a life or death situation. Well, probably not as life or death as some of the patients in that hospital, but you know what I mean. I looked around for somewhere to plug in my charger, and I found a wall outlet right next to the guy in a coma's bed. Problem solved. The only issue was there was already something plugged into it. There was this cable taking up the outlet, and in my mind, I thought, that's annoying, but I need this outlet more than whatever this cable is for. What could it even be plugged in for? Is the guy gonna play Fruit Ninja 2? I highly doubt it. A normal person would think, maybe I shouldn't unplug random cables inside a hospital room. But this was Tyler we're talking about. So I just unplugged it, yanked it right out the wall like I was unplugging a phone charger. No big deal, right? Wrong. The second I unplugged that cable, a bell started ringing. And I don't mean like a gentle ding, ding type of bell. No, I mean alarms going off like I just triggered a nuclear launch sequence. The bell was so loud, my ears were ringing. And then nurses came sprinting into the room from every direction like Olympic athletes, radioing for backup, moving with urgency. A nurse gets to our room and she looks me directly in the eyes and says,
Did you unplug that cable?
I looked at the cable in my hand, then at the guy that was in a coma, and then I looked back at the cable and I went, no. She knew I was lying, so she says,
The cable you're holding is that man's life support.
what does the life support do? So I start freaking out. And when I say freaking out, I mean having a full-on panic attack. Hyperventilating, tears immediately streaming down my face because I was just thinking, I just accidentally killed this man. I was crying so hard I could not even talk. My life was over. I was gonna be known as the kid who killed someone over Fruit Ninja. In my head, this guy was in a coma, which meant he needed life support to live. And I just unplugged him like I was unplugging a toaster. I thought it was over. The nurses were checking on the patient, looking at all the monitors, and I'm just sitting there crying, genuinely thinking I just became a murderer. But as I'm screaming out, I don't want to go to prison! I see that the nurses aren't freaking out nearly as much as I am, which was weird considering the fact I thought I just sent someone to the afterlife. But then they explained something. There are automatic battery backups for life support machines. So when the main power gets unplugged, the battery kicks in immediately, which means nothing actually happened to the patient. His life support was running this whole time. The alarms were just there to alert the staff to come check it. I was still crying though, because, well, now my mom was gonna give me the death stare. The nurses were surprisingly chill once they realized it was just a stupid kid. They plugged the thing back in, explained why you should never unplug things in hospitals, and went back to work. So if any of those nurses are watching this video, hit me up. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop. So imagine this, you're driving home, same route you always take, nothing weird. Then out of nowhere, someone blows a stop sign and hits you. Next thing you know, you're on the side of the road, adrenaline still pumping, trying to process what just happened. Your car's wrecked, your head's racing, and everything feels chaotic. Your phone starts blowing up with calls and messages about the accident. What really matters is having someone on your side who actually knows how this works. Someone whose entire job is to protect you and fight for you. That's why if you're ever injured because of someone else's negligence, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. There's a reason why you wouldn't drive distracted, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years. With more than 1,000 lawyers, 100 offices nationwide, and they've recovered over $30 billion for their clients. Hiring Morgan & Morgan is basically like having an entire legal team step in and handle everything for you. The paperwork, the back and forth, so you don't have to figure it out all on your own. And the best part is, their fee is free unless they win. Because not all law firms are the same, and hiring the wrong one may mean you're beat before you even start. You can check out Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/Tyler Vitelli.
Found the solution to the biggest problem with technology.
A fun and safe way for kids to learn at home.
Smile Zimmy is a kids
at forthepeople.com/Tyler Vitelli. Now, at 7 years old, I was pretty dumb. Okay, you would think as I got older, I would get smarter, but no. Because when I was 12 years old, my family took me to the zoo one day. And I know what you're thinking. Oh no, you were at the zoo. The title of the video is called Times I Almost Died. You must have jumped into that lion enclosure and got thrown around like a rag doll, huh? Well, almost, but not quite. Let me explain. So we're walking around the zoo, looking at all the animals, taking pictures, and after seeing the lions, tigers, and minions, eventually we got to the gorilla exhibit. I'd been excited about the gorillas specifically because I was always fascinated by them. When you look at a gorilla, their body is pretty close to the human body, so to see them with human-like fingers and eyes was just really cool to me. Now in this exhibit, there was a big glass wall separating us from the gorillas, probably like 2 inches thick. And you would think to yourself, surely the zoo designed this place so that that glass is indestructible. Like there's no way the gorilla could break through it. Well, I'm standing there at the glass and I see this massive silverback gorilla just chilling in the enclosure. At first, he was just sitting, probably thinking about gorilla stuff like bananas. But then he started walking toward the glass, just a slow, casual walk. But then he got closer and closer. And now he's standing right in front of me, maybe 3 feet away, and he's just staring at me. Not in a friendly way either. He's making direct eye contact, looking straight into my soul, and it's just me and this tiny piece of glass separating us. But here's where I messed up, because I don't know what it was that possessed me. Maybe it was the same part that got me stuck in a storm drain, but I started beating my chest, just like the gorilla would do. I'm standing there going, "Ah!" while looking the gorilla straight in the eyes, probably looking looking absolutely ridiculous, and my parents were a few feet away looking at some informational sign, completely unaware their son was about to start a fight with an endangered species. And when I did this, I saw something change in that gorilla's eyes. Like a switch flipped. He went from just chilling there to, I'm about to end this kid. The gorilla's posture changed. His expression changed. He did not think what I was doing was funny. So he starts beating his chest now, and then immediately he charges at the glass. And when I say charged, I mean full on sprint. All four limbs on the ground, moving faster than something that big should be able to move. This 400-pound ball of pure muscle was just running directly at me with murder in his eyes. And then he hit the glass. We all flinched, but when we looked back at the glass, we realized there was now a crack. And it wasn't a small one. But then the gorilla is beating his chest, going crazy, looking like he's ready to hit it again. So all of us watching the gorilla run away from that glass. Because it looked like if he took one more hit against that thing, it would shatter, and 2 seconds later, we would all turn into his dinner. But then he did run into it again, and miraculously, the glass was still intact. A couple zoo workers came over and got the gorilla to calm down, and he stopped hitting the glass. But I still think to myself to this day, how close was that gorilla to actually breaking through that glass? But I don't have to think about what potentially could have happened for this next story I'm about to tell you, because what actually happened was painful enough. Let's call it the motorcycle incident. So my dad used to be really into riding motorcycles in the desert when I was younger. Every weekend, he'd load up his bike and just ride for hours. And he wanted me to get into it because, you know, father-son bonding time. The only problem was he always made me use the little kid bike. These things only go like 10 miles per hour. Like they're basically designed for toddlers. And I hated it. Every time we went riding, I'd watch my dad go on his big bike, just flying on that thing, doing cool turns, looking awesome, while I'm just puttering along on my baby bike. I felt so embarrassed. For probably a year, I begged my dad to let me try a bigger bike. Every single ride, I'd ask. But every time, he'd say, no, you're not ready yet. He was right. Because finally, when I got to about 8 years old, he decided I was ready. He bought me a new bike, a real bike. This thing had power. I was so excited I could barely sleep the night before testing it out. But what I didn't realize was just how powerful this bike actually was. The little kid bike was like a tricycle. This new bike was like going from a tricycle straight to a Ferrari. So we get to the desert, unload the bikes, and my dad gives me the safety speech.
Remember, this is more powerful. Start slow.
Got it. Let me go.
I got on the bike, pulled the throttle all the way back. The bike took off like a rocket. It went from 0 to 30 miles per hour in maybe 2 seconds, which doesn't sound that fast, but when you're 8 and you've never gone faster than 5 miles per hour, 30 feels like you're breaking the sound barrier. I couldn't control it at all. My hands were locked on the handlebars in pure panic. The bike just kept going, and I was swerving everywhere like I was in a video game with broken controls. My dad was trying to yell something behind me, but I couldn't even hear him over the engine and the blood rushing through my ears. But here's where it gets really bad, because I was heading straight for a group of people having a campfire next to their motorhome. I was on a collision course with these innocent people just trying to enjoy their camping trip. There was probably 4 or 5 people sitting in camping chairs around this fire, maybe roasting some marshmallows. They looked so peaceful. But eventually, they realized, this kid isn't gonna turn. I saw their faces change from having a nice, relaxing evening to, oh my gosh, this kid is gonna run us over. Now, I didn't want that to happen, so I did the only thing my panic brain could think of. I turned the handlebars as hard as I could to the left. The bike turned so sharply that I couldn't stay on it. I fell off, and because I turned right next to where they were sitting, I slid directly into their campfire. Not near it, into it. My head was literally in the fire like I was the next marshmallow about to become a s'more. And when my momentum stopped, I just lay there for a second, not moving, not because I was hurt, but because I was catching my breath. I didn't even realize my head was in a fire, but the people saw what happened and pulled me out as quickly as possible. My parents came running over, and I could hear my mom screaming, like blood-curdling screams. She was probably thinking her son just burned his face off. When my mom took my helmet off, I was completely fine. Not a single burn. The helmet protected me from the fire. I don't know if motorcycle helmets are designed to be fireproof or if I just got incredibly lucky, but I was completely unharmed. I didn't even know I fell into the fire until they told me. I felt the fall, I felt myself sliding, I felt people grabbing me, but I didn't feel any heat or flames. I basically got out of that situation with just a few scratches. I gave the bike back to my dad immediately and said,
Okay, can I just have the little kid one again?
you know, I'm starting to notice that there were a lot of moments in my life where I did something dangerous involving fire when I was younger. And that remains true for this next story about the time where my mom made chili one night. But this wasn't just any chili. No, this was really good chili. The kind that's been marinating all day, got all the spices perfectly balanced. The kind that makes the whole house smell amazing. Okay, I should stop describing the food. I'm just getting hungry. I know I've said before that my mama can't cook, but when it comes to chili, she locks in. There was only one problem. I wasn't home the night she was making it. I was at a friend's house. So when the next day came, you know the one thing I wanted to have was some of that leftover chili. So I went to the kitchen, and she had one bowl of it left over, saved specifically for me, and it was wrapped in tinfoil. But it was cold from sitting in the fridge, and since I'm not a psychopath, I decided to heat it up in the microwave. How could I mess this up? Well, never underestimate my ability to ruin something. Because remember, I said the chili had tinfoil on it. I had absolutely no idea that tinfoil and microwaves were mortal enemies. Nobody told...
Sub Club members can get any footlong for $6.99 in the Subway app. Subway, eat fresh, feel good.
It's more than an SUV. It's your Chevy Equinox with advanced safety features.
Nobody told me they had beef with each other. Get it? Beef? Chili? So I took this bowl of chili out of the fridge with its tinfoil on and put it in the microwave. I then set the timer to 1 minute. I pressed start and I left the kitchen to go to the bathroom while it was heating up. So I'm in the bathroom when I start to hear sounds coming from the kitchen. At first, it's just a little popping. The popping sound gets louder and faster. And now it sounded like someone was setting off fireworks in my kitchen. And you know the popping sound is loud if I can hear it over the sound of my stream. I ran back to the kitchen as fast as I could. Inside the microwave, there was a full-on fire. Not a little flame, a legit fire with sparks flying everywhere like a Tesla coil. The tin foil was glowing. There were blue and white electrical arcs jumping around. And for a second, I stood there frozen, just watching this light show. And then I realized I'm the only one in this house. I should probably stop this before it burns the whole place down. So I ran over and opened the microwave door, which stopped the sparks, but the damage was already done. The inside of that microwave looked like it had just been through a war. The microwave was dead. Not like a, it just needs to cool down type of dead. No, like a never gonna work again dead. I tried pressing buttons. No one else was home. So I decided the best course of action was to just not tell anyone what I did. So I cleaned up the bowl of destroyed chili, threw away the evidence, and left the microwave looking normal from the outside. You couldn't tell it was broken anymore unless you tried to use it. But a couple days later, my brother did try to use it. He put his food in, pressed some buttons, and nothing happened. The display didn't light up, and he told my mom. So she came over to look, and they were both confused. And this is where I had to lock in, because I walked over, looked at it with them, and then said,
Huh, that's weird. Josh, you just broke the microwave.
I blamed it on my brother. They never found out it was me. To this day, they probably still think that microwave randomly died. Now, I need everyone to pay very close attention for this next story, which is the chainsaw incident. And I can easily say this is the closest I've ever personally come to actually dying. So my dad was outside one Saturday using a chainsaw to cut something up in the backyard. My dad's out there with his murder machine, wearing safety goggles, doing everything right. And that's when I decided, you know what? It would be hilarious to sneak up behind him and give him dead legs. If you don't know what dead legs is, it's this thing where you hit the back of someone's knees so their legs buckle. So I walked up behind him, real quiet. He had no idea I was there. I hit the back of his legs. His knees buckled and he jolted forward, losing his balance. And this made him swing the chainsaw because he just lost control of it. But he swung it right in the direction of my face. Everything went into slow motion. I watched the chainsaw blade swing up. I watched the teeth on it spinning towards me. And I kid you not, that chainsaw came within 1 or 2 inches of my head. That's the difference between me telling you this story and me being a news headline. I could literally feel the wind from the blades on my eyebrows. Luckily, my dad regained his balance, pulled the chainsaw away, and immediately turned it off. He didn't yell at me. He just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. It was the look of a man who realized his son almost just died. And then he said, in the most calm but serious voice ever,
Go inside.
That was the moment I realized I should stop doing stupid things. I never actually did stop, but hey, at least I realized I should.
I would surely have perished if it wasn't for Mr. Tenpenny and his tower.
Welcome to Tenpenny Tower. I would sure Tenpenny Tower
Sorry, guys. Clicked on it. Clicked on it.
Hello, I'm Dominique Ren, and today we're going to do my version of a potato salad. We're going to slice some garlic.
If there's one thing you should know about sleepovers with your friends, is that when you fall asleep, anything can happen. And I mean anything. And I'm gonna tell you about a sleepover I had that went way too far. But to understand how we got to this night, I have to rewind a little bit. So a couple months prior to this evening, my friends and I had a sleepover at a guy named Randy's cabin. Now, if you've ever watched this video, you would know all about that night. But let me summarize it real quick. My friends and I all went to Randy's cabin to have a sleepover, and the night started out normal with us doing the usual sleepover things. But unfortunately, I made the #1 biggest mistake you can't do at a sleepover.
Yes, live.
Okay, today we are looking up the scariest places on Google Earth, starting with Area 51. What actually happens if you search up the coordinates Area 51 on Google Earth? I've never done that. So let's just type in Google Earth. Is Google Earth free? It better be. I ain't paid for no Google Earth. The McDonald's Wi-Fi is at it again, bruh. What does this even mean? Unlock layers? Made over 10K and likes on your shorts? Wait, what do you mean? Oh, like in the comments, Cash? Area 50. Okay. How do we... New map. Search Google Earth. Oh, okay, maybe. Let's put the coordinates in here. Ah, okay. Are you new from Earth? No. So, if you search up Area 51... Take this off the screen, please. Dismiss. Dismiss. This is what Area 51 looks like on Google Earth. Okay. They got planes there? Can you fly out of Area 51? Where? Okay, chat. If they did have aliens, where would they keep them on here? If I was an alien, where would I be at? We gotta zoom in closer. A little closer.
If I was an alien, I would be like near the planes, bro.
In the planes? No, bro. They're definitely underground. Let's zoom in.
You guys have planes like me.
That looks sketchy. That looks sketchy. I think it could be in here, you know. about... You know, I thought there would be more buildings at Area 51. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, never mind. There are other buildings. What are all these? Bunkers? I used to work here? Cosmic, say you swear. Say you swear you worked at Area 51. Oh my gosh, I'm just...
The new Panera Mix and Match menu. Choose 2 or more, just $4.99 each.
Now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus.
Here, you're not the predator. You're the prey.
You believe a lot of dumb things when you're a kid. Like if you swallow a piece of gum, it'll stay in your stomach for 7 years. So let's talk about some of the lies we all fell for when we were younger and how I found out that these lies weren't even real. Because looking back, we were all pretty stupid growing up. And between you and me, some of us still are. Wait, no, I wasn't talking about myself. Whatever, let's just get into it. So you might think to yourself, where did we even hear all these lies we believed as kids? Well, lucky for you, I know the answer. It was our parents. They were always the ones gaslighting us into believing things that weren't true. And they weren't even good lies. Like you would be passing by McDonald's and say,
"Hey Mom, can we get some food?"
And she'd just be like,
Nah, McDonald's is closed.
First off, last time I checked, McDonald's is not Chick-fil-A. They don't close on any day. They would stay open during the apocalypse. And second of all, I literally could see people in the drive-thru. But why would parents lie to us as kids? They're the ones who tell us that lying is bad and we shouldn't do it. Well, I've interviewed my mom to find out exactly why parents did this, and this was her answer. This is actually a direct quote from her. Here we go. Well, you were a very annoying kid growing up, and the only way I could get you to listen or behave was by lying to you. Thanks for the insight, Mom. I understand it now. I would have lied to me too. But the first big lie I believed as a child wasn't because of my parents. And technically, it might actually be true. Like, there's no way for anyone to prove that it isn't true. The lie that my toys and stuffed animals came to life when I wasn't looking. Growing up, I was so confident this was real. I don't know if it was just because of watching Toy Story or just straight up schizophrenia, but I believed it. I was convinced that the second I left my room, my stuffed animals were throwing parties, gossiping about me, everything. I had evidence. Because when I was younger, my toys kept disappearing. I'd have a stuffed dog one day, and then a week later, gone. I'd get a toy from McDonald's when my mom finally would take me, but 3 days passed, it's nowhere to be seen. So in my mind, there was only one explanation. The toys were getting up and leaving. Maybe I wasn't a good enough owner. Maybe they found a better kid that would take care of them more. Maybe my farts just smelled too bad, so they got up and left when I wasn't looking. I wouldn't even blame them for that one, to be honest. I mean, I farted so hard one time, my hamster had a stroke. Those poor little creatures will die over anything. I mean, I wouldn't have even been surprised if there was a Reddit page the toys made just dedicated to hating on me. So to prove my theory right, I made a plan to catch my toys in the act. So I asked my parents for a motion sensor for Christmas, which they were really confused about, but I'm pretty sure they just figured this was my autism special interest at the time. So they bought it for me, and I set it up in my room. And then I put all my toys in a pile together and aimed the sensor right at them. But here was the weird part. My toys were still disappearing. Then one day, I'm sitting in the living room, and I hear this noise coming from under the couch. So I get down on the floor, and I look behind the couch. I'm thinking maybe a mouse is stuck under there, but what I actually saw shocked me, because underneath that couch was every single toy I thought ran away. My tiny stuffed dog, my kids' meal toys, my LeBron plush toy, all just completely covered in dust. Some of them were missing eyes because my cat must have been getting weird with them, so I grabbed them out from under the couch, and then my cat proceeded to take one from my hand and run away. That's when I realized he was the guilty one this whole time. He was stealing all my toys and playing with them, and then eventually losing them under the couch. So I did the only thing I could do in this situation. I fed my cat to a pack of wolves. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. It was just a joke, okay? My cat is so fat anyway that wolves wouldn't be able to eat him. But for this next lie, I was literally convinced I would die if I did it. Like, it was genuinely dangerous, and I still don't understand it. But this next lie is about the light inside your car. You know exactly what I'm talking about. If you even thought about turning on that light while the car was moving at night, your parents acted like you just activated a time bomb. You're in the car and you sneeze, which makes boogers fly everywhere. So you turn the light on to clean it up. But the moment you do that, your mom goes,
"Turn that off right now."
The way they said it was always so panicked. Like we were seconds away from a catastrophe happening. It was as if the button for the light in our car was actually the same button that launches the nuclear missiles. So naturally, because my parents freaked out so much every time I did this, I literally thought turning on the car light at night was illegal. It was the only explanation that made sense. this. If a cop drove by and saw your interior light was on, you're going to jail. And then when you get to court to see how long your sentence is, you realize that your homie is the judge and he gives you life in prison just as a silly little prank. So I was terrified of that light. If my hand even grazed the switch by accident, I'd have a full panic attack. And my parents never actually explained why it was so dangerous. They just yelled whenever I pressed it, which made it worse because my child brain filled in the blanks with increasingly disturbing scenarios. Like maybe the light blinds other drivers and it will make them veer off a cliff. Maybe it's a signal to the police that there's a child in the car who's getting kidnapped. It wasn't until I was like 13 that I actually found out it wasn't illegal because I was in the car with my friend and his mom and he reached for the button to turn the light on. But before he could do it, I slapped his hand and went, "What are you doing? You can't do that." And he just goes,
"What are you talking about?"
And when he turned it on, nothing happened. No one died. Well, at least not in that car. Because statistically, like, someone dies about every 2 seconds. So I'm sure someone in the world just did, actually. And someone also probably just did right now. But anyways, I thought I would understand why parents were so freaky about this light when I began driving. But now, I've been driving for 8 years, and I still don't understand it. Maybe I'll understand it more when I have kids. But at this point, me having kids is looking like a long shot. The worst part is, I'm scared of the dark, so I like when the light is on. And most of the lies we believed when we were younger aren't harmful at all. This next one was harmful, and it was disgusting. Because did anyone else assume growing up that actors who played relatives in movies were actually related in real life? Like Drake and Josh, or the Jonas Brothers. The logic was simple. I'm 5 years old, I'm watching a show where these people are brothers and sisters, and since I'm a dumb kid, I just assumed they must be brother and sister in reality. But what made this so disgusting was the day I watched the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you've never seen this movie, it's about a guy named Ferris Bueller, but in the movie, he has a sister named Jeannie. And in the movie, they're like normal siblings. They fight, get mad at each other, very standard brother-sister stuff. But then one day, I'm walking through the living room.
Tyler. Dad, no, Tyler. Stop.
They fight, get mad at each other, very standard brother-sister stuff. But then one day, I'm walking through the living room and my mom's watching some entertainment news show. Then I look at the TV and see Ferris Bueller and his sister. And there they are on a red carpet together. Doesn't seem too weird until they turn toward each other and kiss. Like full-on romantic kissing. Not a peck on the cheek, not a friendly hug. So I just point at the TV and go, ew. My mom looks at me, and this is how our interaction goes. "Oh, Tyler, grow up. They're just kissing." "You support this?" "Yeah, they're a cute couple. I don't see the issue with it." "Are you and Dad siblings too?" And after I said that, this was the moment I was taught that not all relatives in movies or shows are actually related in real life. So if you see someone making out with their sister on the red carpet, don't worry. It's not weird. Wait, please do not clip that out of context. Please, I'm begging you. Let's move on. Do you see this face I'm making? Well, this face is actually very dangerous, and if you try to do it, bad things may happen. Well, at least that's what I used to believe growing up, when my parents told me the lie that we've all been told before. If you keep making that face, it'll get stuck that way. This is a classic parental threat that worked way too well, because it's pretty believable. Like, if you don't know how faces work as a kid, maybe it can get stuck like this. You've never tested the limits, but I've got some trauma with this lie, because for some reason, I was obsessed with rolling my eyes back into my head when I was younger. I don't know why. It didn't serve any purpose. It wasn't even comfortable, but I discovered this weird thing my body could do, and I was gonna exploit it. So I just walk around all day with my eyes rolled back like I was possessed, and my parents hated it. It looked like this. "Hey Mom, what's up?" You're such a disappointment. Naturally, my parents hated when I did this. Every single time I did it, they'd hit me with the, "Your eyes are gonna stay like that." And whenever they'd say that, I'd stop immediately, because the mental image of having permanently rolled back eyes was way too horrifying. I'd be walking around looking like a zombie for the rest of my life. Imagine trying to find a girlfriend or a job when you just look like this. "Hey baby, wanna go on a date?" I mean, to be fair, my eyes are fine, and I still don't have either of those things. But I'm sure this wouldn't have helped. And I genuinely thought this one was true one day when I was yawning a bunch. I don't know if I just didn't get good sleep the night before, but after about the 500th yawn, my jaw got stuck like this. I literally couldn't move it. I was freaking out thinking, oh my gosh, they weren't lying. It's gonna be stuck like this forever. I can't live the rest of my life like this. What if a bird flies in my mouth? How do I defend against that? But my mom took me to the doctor, and it turns out I just had lockjaw, which they were able to fix in like 3 seconds. To this day, I still can't open my jaw super wide because of that, which is super sad because I used to get a quadruple Baconator at Wendy's, but now I can only fit 3 patties in my mouth. But do you guys remember when I swallowed a piece of gum in the beginning of the video? Probably not, because I think most of you just put these videos on in the background and don't even really listen to what I'm saying. Actually, let's test if that's true. If you're paying attention right now, comment the word purple pineapple. Well, I mean, I guess that's 2 words, but anyway, where was I? Ah, yes, swallowing gum. The one thing you never wanted to do, because if you did, apparently it would stay in your stomach for 7 years.
No, it
7
wasn't.
years. That's longer than some people's marriages. So just imagine how scared I was one time when I'm chewing some gum until my friend makes a funny joke, which causes me to laugh. And unfortunately, mid-laugh, I suffered the worst fate known to man. I swallowed the gum. And the second I realized what happened, I went straight to the bathroom. I had to get that gum out no matter what it took. So I did what any rational person would do, and I tried to throw it back up. I put fingers down my throat, gagged, and made my eyes water. But still, it wouldn't come up, so I had to face reality. I was gonna carry this gum around inside me until I was in high school. This piece of gum was gonna be with me for all my major life events. First day of middle school, gum would be there. First crush, gum would be there. Watching my sports teams choke every year, including to this day, gum would be there. So I went to my friend and told him what I just did, but he just looked at me like, okay, so I've swallowed like 10 pieces of gum before. It's not a problem. If you were wondering whether this was the same kid I said ate glue once, yes it was. I know, I had a weird friend group. I also ate glue once, but that's irrelevant. Does anyone even know where this lie came from though? Because I looked it up, and apparently when you swallow gum, your body just digests it like any other food. So what is even the purpose behind spreading this lie? Unfortunately guys, the video is now in black and white. My room is literally black and white, and this isn't just a filter I put on the video, okay? I'm just joking. Okay, editor, you can put the video back into color now. No, not like that. No, that's not quite right either. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, anyways, what I was... Are you serious? Okay, so the point I was trying to make with that segment is that I thought people saw the world in black and white before color TV was invented. In my child brain, it made perfect sense. Old TV shows show black and white because that's what the world looked like back then. Just like the wheel was invented, just like the Popeye's chicken sandwich was invented, one day, color was invented. Someone just decided to make color one day. It was probably just one of the many things LeBron created, I don't know. But I remember watching an old show once where a character pointed at a rainbow and said, "Ah, look at that beautiful rainbow." I looked at the TV screen and the rainbow was just shades of gray. So I'm sitting there thinking, wow, these people are really excited about a gray rainbow? They must have just never seen one with color in their life. The past was in black and white, and that's why old photos were black and white. That's why old movies were black and white. I was so convinced of this that I asked my grandparents one time what it was like to grow up with the world being in black and white and then changing to color. The worst part about me asking this was they didn't even correct me. They were just like, oh yeah, it was cool. Seeing color for the first time is amazing. When a kid that was obsessed with film in my class told me color existed before color TV, how cameras could only capture black and white at first, color film was developed later, all of this nerd stuff I don't even remember. And I just sat there, absorbing this information, feeling my entire understanding of history crumble. World War II, the Great Depression, happened in color. Now I know this next slide isn't real, but I want to start a petition to make it real, because it just doesn't feel right any other way. Because when I was younger, I was fully convinced that teachers lived at school. They just stayed there all the time, because where else would they go? The school was their home. I think the reasoning behind this belief is that teachers were always at school when I arrived in the morning, and they were still there when I left in the afternoon. Therefore, they never left that place. They must have lived there. Now, I've told you guys before about some of the horror stories I've had seeing my teacher in public and talking about how this could be scary, especially if it's a teacher you got beef with. But let me tell you about how I first discovered that this whole thing was a lie. Teachers actually have lives outside of school. At least most of them do. But the one who failed me in 7th grade math, that guy didn't have a life. I didn't forget about you, Mr. Clark. All you had to do was bump my grade 0.2%, and you couldn't do it because rules are rules. Sorry, guys. I just needed to get that off my chest. But the tragic day where I found out teachers actually do touch grass is when I went to the movie theater. I was there to the movie theater. I was there with some friends. I don't remember what we were going to see. Probably something sophisticated like the Cars movie. And of course, when you're in the theater, you have assigned seats. We picked the very back row so we could mess around a little bit. But when we arrived to our seats, you know who is literally one seat over from us? My teacher and a girl. The moment we made eye contact with each other, I don't know who was more disappointed because we both had a facial expression signaling that our night was ruined. But the seats were assigned and the theater was pretty full, so we couldn't just move seats. So we sat down next to him, and at first he tried to ignore us, but we could both feel the tension. So eventually he just goes, "Oh, hey gentlemen, didn't see you there." We said hi back to him, and that was it. Not another word for the whole movie. It was the most awkward experience I have ever had with a teacher, and I've accidentally called my teacher mom before. So who's with me? Who else believes that teachers should not be allowed to leave the school? I know it sounds cruel, but it's just too weird to see them outside of their natural habitat. You don't let the lions at the zoo outside of their enclosure? No, because that would result in chaos. People could die. And we could say the same thing about teachers being outside of school. But if you're thinking, Tyler, this is a bit dramatic, don't you think? Because the only reason I want this to be a rule in the first place is so Mr. Clark can't leave school and he's trapped there forever. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure this happens. Mr. Clark wasn't even a good teacher either. Like, if he actually did his job well, do you think I would have turned out like this? Don't answer that, actually. But Mr. Clark did such a bad job at teaching that I was still stupid when I finished the class. And if you don't think I'm being honest, well, just wait for this next thing I believed as a kid. Because I genuinely thought growing up that chocolate milk came from brown cows. This is a lie I believed because of an experience I had with a cow. I had family that lived on a farm in Oklahoma. I'm talking like true Southern people that talk like this and say y'all all the time. Y'all want to go to dinner? Y'all trying to go to Diddy's house? Okay, I'm sorry. Anyways, on this farm, my family had several cows, and one of them was brown. So in my mind, that meant one thing. That cow must produce chocolate milk. It wasn't Nesquik making the milk chocolate. It was these cows. And like any other kid, I love chocolate milk. So one day, I decided I want some chocolate milk right now. There's none in the house, but luckily, I've got a gold mine that makes its own chocolate milk in the backyard. Now, I couldn't tell my parents or my grandparents who actually owned the farm about this because they would have told me no. So I quietly snuck out to this barn when nobody was watching. I approached the brown cow with delusional confidence. He was just standing there. I said hi. He said, moo. Then I got up close and was ready to do the job, but I realized I had a significant problem. I've never milked a cow before. I have no idea how to do this. So now that I was standing there face to face with these udders, the whole thing just felt deeply wrong. Even the thought of just touching those udders felt inappropriate to me at that time. I reached my hand out toward the udder, but every time I got close, I pulled it back. Tried again, pulled it back. I did this probably 8 times because I really wanted that chocolate milk. The cow didn't even notice. It just kept eating hay, completely unbothered by me. After like 5 full minutes of doing this, I came to the conclusion I just couldn't. It felt too invasive, so I just walked away. Went back to the house with no chalky milk. But my grandpa saw me trying to sneak back inside the house and asked me what I was doing. Now my grandpa never judged me, so he was the one person that I felt like I could tell the truth to. I told him the whole thing. Then he took me back out there and taught me how to milk a cow. And that's when I realized I never want to milk a cow again. I also don't even know if it's safe to drink milk straight after milking it. But what do I know? Or at least I used to think I know. Something I used to think I know was that swimming immediately after eating something will hurt you, kill you even. This was treated as an undeniable law of nature. Where was the scientific studies backing this up? Well, I have it right here. It's called your mom. That sounded like I was trying to make a your mom joke. I wasn't. I was just saying that moms were usually the ones who made this up. Please tell your mom I apologize for the joke I just made. And if she's single, please tell her to hit me up. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop. But I had to learn the hard way that this myth was not real when I was at a pool party for someone's birthday. And I just demolished a massive amount of food. Hot dogs, chips, watermelon, birthday cake, probably some candy. I was uncomfortably full. This is a problem I still have today. Like, if there's free food in front of me, I'm literally going to eat all of it. It's not even me doing it either. I just enter the flow state whenever I see food in front of me. So after eating everything in sight, including the table, my friends got in the pool. I was just chilling, watching everyone else instead of actually going in because I knew I needed 30 minutes for my food to digest. And also, like I've said, I sucked at swimming when I was younger, but everyone kept calling for me to get in. Tyler, get in, we're starting Marco Polo.
Come on, Tyler, you're so hot and tall and have so much aura. Get in.
But the point is, they really wanted me in that pool. So I convinced myself I probably waited long enough. Surely the food digested by now, and my stomach wouldn't burst out with my organs splattering all over the place for everyone to see. So I got in the pool. Within 10 seconds of getting in the water, I threw up. Projectile vomited everything I'd eaten. Hot dogs, cake, watermelon, all of it in the pool. The screaming started right away. Kids scrambling out of the pool like I just released a bag of piranhas. The pool had to be completely evacuated. The birthday party basically ended right there. Someone's dad had to come out with the pool chemicals and cleaning supplies. No one got back in the pool for the rest of the party. So I just had to sit there, wrapped in a towel, dripping wet and covered in shame. So in my mind, this proved everything. The swimming after eating rule was real. For years after that, I never swam immediately after eating. I'd watch other people swim after eating and think, you're playing with fire, buddy. You're either gonna throw up or die. I've seen it firsthand. I became a lifeguard for pool parties, but instead of saving kids from drowning, I was saving kids from throwing up all over the place. If a kid actually was drowning, I couldn't do anything. And this is a lie that's pretty convincing. So it wasn't even until maybe last year where I found out there's actually no scientific evidence that swimming right after eating does anything. The whole thing is a myth. You can swim immediately after eating and you'll be totally fine. But I was like, no, that can't be true. I am proof that that's not true. But the more research I did and the more I thought about it, I started to realize, maybe it was the fact that I ate about 12,000 calories that caused me to throw up and not my toes just touching the water. So did I learn my lesson? No. I still eat everything in sight anytime there's free food. But from now on, when I do this, I just make sure there's a bathroom nearby. And speaking of bathroom, I really have to go poop. So I'm gonna have to end this video right here. Okay, bye guys.
Best gift ever. I hope he didn't break the bank.
Your boy here's doing just fine. His Empower investment accounts are designed for the long haul. And
If your friend framed you for a crime you didn't commit, would you snitch on them? Or would you take the fall? Because this was a choice I had to make one time. And let me just say, I did not make the right decision. It all started when I went to the mall with my friend. It was supposed to just be a chill Saturday. Me and my friend Harry, who were bored and broke, were trying to think of things to do. And by putting our 3 brain cells together, we landed on going to the mall. This was a place me and Harry went a lot. Not because we like shopping, but because this was always where the pretty girls were, and we would try to flirt with them. And by flirting with them, I mean walking by them without making eye contact and hoping that they fall in love with us. So that's what we did. We're just at the mall walking around, but out of nowhere, my friend goes, "Yo, let's pop into this Best Buy real quick. I need some headphones." Now this was a weird thing for Harry to say because, like I said earlier, we were broke. Like to the point where I considered going live online pretending to be an NPC and saying, "Thank you for the rose." So I knew Harry couldn't afford any headphones, but I just assumed he wanted to browse around and not actually buy anything, so I went in there with him, and that is where I messed up. So we're in Best Buy, just browsing around. I'm in the fridge section hoping there's actual food inside it.
'Cause I'm a big bag.
Harry's in the speakers section connecting his phone to the speakers, playing moaning noises. We were just having fun. I didn't think we were actually in the store for any specific reason, but little did I know, Harry had a plan the whole time. Because I had my backpack on that I bring everywhere. It just has the daily essentials in it. Phone charger, snacks, water, LeBron Barbie doll, just the normal stuff. But for some reason, while I was off to the side just looking at some microwaves, my friend must have decided that this was the perfect time to go behind my back and frame me for a crime that should have never happened. Now here's the thing. I didn't see this crime happen. I didn't hear it. I didn't feel it. All I know is, about 10 minutes later, we tried leaving Best Buy. But the moment we walked through that front door, you know what we hear? Beep, beep, beep. The shoplifting alarm goes off. Right when this happened, my first thought wasn't, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." No, I was thinking, oh, these alarms must be malfunctioning, because there was no reason for them to actually go off. I didn't steal anything. I looked over at Harry and saw that he had nothing on him, so it must have just been one big mistake, right? I even laughed, because in my head, there was 0% chance that we had done anything wrong. But that laughter stopped real quick when 3 Best Buy employees came sprinting over to us like we just stole the ring from Golem. When the employees got to us, they didn't look mad. They were professional, but they had this look on their face. You know the one I'm talking about? It's that, "Don't move a muscle or we'll treat you like a criminal" look. And then they say, "Excuse me, we need to check your bags. Our system flagged something when you guys tried to walk out." And again, I'm chill about it because in my head, I'm thinking this will be the easiest misunderstanding of all time. I was actually excited for them to look because I knew I was innocent. So I unzip my bag, flip it open confidently for them to look, and boom, sitting right on top, like it had just somehow teleported there, was a brand new computer. Not a computer I brought with me, no. It was a computer from the store that was still in its case, just chilling inside my backpack. My first reaction when seeing it was just confusion. I knew I didn't put that there. So how did it randomly appear? I turned to my friend with the most confused look on my face and said, "Did you put this here?" But when I asked that, he just stood frozen like a statue in a wax museum. No expression, nothing. That was the first weird sign of me. Why would he react like that? I look back at the employees and honestly say, I have no idea how that got in there. And one of them, this guy with the most serious dad voice ever, goes, "Sir, I'm gonna need you to come with us." So now I'm following the Best Buy employees through the store like I'm being escorted to the electric chair. Meanwhile, my friend, you know, the guy who just potentially committed a felony while using my backpack as a smuggling device, is following behind me, still not saying anything. They bring us through a door labeled "Employees Only," which felt like walking into the back rooms of reality. You don't realize how eerie the inside of a Best Buy can be until you walk into these rooms. The lights are dimmer, the air is colder, and the vibes are just awful. We walked into this tiny room that looked like a mix of a break room, an interrogation room, and the room where the Geek Squad employees go when they don't want to fix your phone. And then one of the employees goes, "You guys sit tight. We've already contacted law enforcement." Wait. Law enforcement? For what? I thought they were just going to take us back here, make us give the computer back, tell us to not do that again or else, and then let us leave. So why is law enforcement coming over a misunderstanding? At this point, I start sweating. So I turn to my friend and whisper, "Dude, please tell me you know what's going on. Did you actually put this in my backpack? Is it some sort of prank or something?" But once again, he's not giving any answers. I still didn't know what was up with him. But after finding out the whole truth a little bit later, I could not have been more disappointed in him. So I'm pacing back and forth in this Best Buy back room, trying not to have a full-blown mental breakdown next to this vending machine that only sells off-brand sodas. Like, what do you mean do I want some Dr. Bob? Meanwhile, the employees left the room, telling us to wait there and that they would be back in a couple minutes. Then one of them comes back in with a printed sheet of paper and says, "Now normally when someone attempts to steal something, you might get a warning or a 6-month ban from the store. But in this case, it's different because the retail price of that laptop is $1,099. Now let me explain why that matters. Stealing something worth under $950 is just a misdemeanor. But over $950, that's grand theft, which means we have to contact law enforcement and let them handle it. This whole situation was getting way too serious, way too fast. I didn't even know what grand theft meant. I just thought that was a video game. So I go, wait, I didn't steal anything though, I promise. Check the cameras. And they go, oh, don't worry. We're pulling the camera footage right now. So I'm thinking, phew, this will prove that I'm innocent and they'll let me go. But when I tell you what I saw in that camera footage, somehow it made the situation 10 times worse. Because they leave us alone for a few minutes while they're reviewing the footage. And I'm just sitting there, spiraling. And my friend tries to say something, but I cut him off before he can and go, dude, we could actually go to jail for this. You realize that, right? Jail. Like we're about to be sleeping in bunk beds and sharing the same toilet. Actually, now that I think about it, jail just sounds like a sleepover with your homies. That don't sound too bad. But still, I didn't want to go. Now that I knew that computer magically just appeared in my bag, I didn't trust anyone or anything, including Harry. Because I started thinking, Harry had to have done this. He knew I wasn't paying attention and he slipped it in my bag. But as I'm going through this in my head, the one question I keep having is, why? So I ask him, Harry, be honest with me. Did you set me up? And he just looks at me, panicked with his eyes wide, and goes, no man, I didn't do that. The security camera footage will prove it. I don't know what happened. I wasn't sure whether to believe him or not. As he's pleading his innocence to me, the employee comes back into the room. We've got the footage. The cops are almost here. You'll be able to review it with them.
Buy one, get one free is back at Boss
Buy one,
Bob's.
get one
4
free.
days only,
Buy one,
Thursday through
get one
Sunday.
free.
Men's Hager
Buy one,
casual
get one
pants.
free.
Buy one, get
Buy one,
His innocence
get
to me,
one.
the
Buy one,
employee
get
comes
one.
back into the room. We've got the footage.
Buy one,
The
get
cops are
one
almost
free.
here. You'll be able to review it with them. Oh, great. We get to do a watch-along of Casper the Ghost putting a computer in my backpack with the police. Nice. So we sit there in awkward silence with the employees, just waiting around, and then finally, we hear it. A knock on the door. The employees open it up, and 2 cops come walking inside. And when these cops walked in, everything just felt more tense. Like they had that police aura that just makes you scared. One officer was really tall, probably like 6'7". 6'7". Okay, but he had a mustache that screamed, I don't mess around. Like that man definitely had some food saved in there for later. The other cop looked fresh out of college. Like this could have been his first week on the job. They shut the door behind them, and the mustache one says, all right, boys, let's talk about what happened today. We're gonna need you 2 to walk us through exactly what happened. From the moment you came into the store to the moment you tried leaving. Now, before I can say anything, my friend suddenly has the urge to speak now and goes, we were just at the mall. We weren't planning on buying anything. We weren't doing anything wrong. I promise. I just like coming into Best Buy because it has really cool stuff. I promise we didn't do anything wrong. So he's just rambling. And with every new word that's coming out of his mouth, I'm just thinking, dog, I'm going to jail. This man is the worst liar I've ever seen. So while he's yapping, the mustache cop holds his hand up and is like, son, slow down. Then he turns to me and goes, you, backpack guy, what's your version of the story? First of all, backpack guy? I'm pretty sure that nickname is already taken by the one guy that did the floss dance. But regardless, I responded and say, look, officer, I know this sounds dumb, but I promise I had no idea the laptop was even in my backpack. I didn't touch it, I didn't grab it, I didn't put it in there. I never even saw it. The first time I even realized anything was wrong was when the alarm went off and they checked my bag. Mustache cop raises an eyebrow and goes, so how did it get in there then? And when he asks that, I just freeze. Because what was I supposed to say? Telling him that I think my friend did it just felt like snitching when I didn't know the whole truth. But saying I have no idea how it got in there and it just magically appeared is not a believable story. So I needed something, but I wasn't gonna snitch on my boy when I didn't know the whole story. So I go, I don't know. I didn't see it happen, but it wasn't me. That's all I know. Mustache cop doesn't react. He just says, all right, well, we're gonna review the footage together and find out the truth. They spin around a dusty little monitor like it's a Blockbuster premiere. And no kidding, in that moment, I've never been more nervous to look at a television screen in my life. Not even when I had to watch Teletubbies growing up and I saw that creepy little sun peeking out every time. The footage starts. It shows us walking into Best Buy. Everything looks normal. We're talking, we're laughing. Eventually, it gets to the point where we're in the computer section. And there it is. My friend Harry is holding a box in his hand. You can see me turn around to look at some display, and my backpack is on the ground right behind me. The moment I do that, he slips the laptop into my bag like he's some sort of magician. Now here's the part where I almost threw up. In the footage, I turn around right as he's putting it in there. So it looks like I caught him in the act of doing it. Like I saw it happen and was in on it myself. As if this was some sort of elaborate plan we had together. And even worse, there's this moment right after where he says something and I laugh. I'm guessing he said a joke or something, but on camera, it looks real suspicious. Like we're in on this whole thing together. Now when it actually happened, did I see him sneak the computer into my backpack? No. I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't. The footage eventually ends, and the cops both look at us, looking for an explanation. I say out loud, I promise it's not what it looks like. But Mustache Cop just has a stone cold look on his face. And then he says, you know lying to a cop is a crime, right? Look, we've seen people play dumb thousands of times. And this footage right here looks like you're playing dumb. I wanted to scream. because I knew I was innocent, but all the evidence pointed towards that being not true. So now I'm sitting there, watching my life fall apart in 480p resolution, and all I can think about is, how did I end up here? Because why did Harry even put that computer into my backpack and let me leave knowing it was in there? Was he trying to set me up? Or was there a bigger reason that this all happened? And that's when Mustache Cop drops the line that made my soul leave my body. Retail value on this computer is over $1,000. That makes this a felony. A second later, he told us that the punishment for a felony is 2 years in prison. I can't do that. I know what happens to guys like me in there. I would not make it. I'm stuttering, but I wasn't even. I didn't mean to. He holds his hand up again and goes, "Doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what happened." And then, like we're starring in an episode of Law and Order, Best Buy unit, they tell us to stand up. So we do, and then they say, "You guys are under arrest," and they handcuff us. I'd never been handcuffed before, but it felt way worse than I ever imagined. First off, they're really cold and really tight. So to all the freaky people out there that like having handcuffs put on them, I don't know how y'all do it. They walk us through the store like criminals, and every customer is just watching us. Some confused, some entertained. One little kid even goes, "Mommy, are they bad guys?" And I just wanted to scream, "I'm not, it's Harry." But nothing I said was gonna help at this point. When we got outside, they put us in the back of a police car. And as soon as that door closed, it felt real, too real. I turned to my friend, who still hadn't said a word, and just stared at him. My brain was trying to decide whether I should panic, rage at him, or just curl up into a ball and cry. And then finally, he looks at me in the eyes and whispers, "I didn't mean for this to happen." So I just said, "What do you mean you didn't mean for this to happen? What were you even trying to do in the first place?" But then the cop got in the car, and we all went quiet. So he drives us to the police station, and now I'm shaking. It's not even that the building is scary, it's just bland. Like it has no soul. And it's meant to be that way. They separate my friend the moment we walk in. And the scariest part about them separating us was, I didn't know what story Harry was gonna tell them. What if he made it sound like I was the bad guy? Like I'm sure the moment the officers offered him a Big Mac, he would snitch on me. Now this is when the overthinking officially began. Because for the first time since this whole thing started, I had a second alone to process it all. And the panic started rushing in like the Kool-Aid man running through a wall. Like wait, hold on. If the laptop was in my bag, does that make me the person who actually stole it? Meaning, am I gonna be the one who gets in the most trouble? Because from their perspective, it just looks like I tried walking out of that store with a $1,000 computer in my backpack like it was a Fortnite back bling. They put me in this small room that just had a desk and 2 chairs on it. And I've watched enough TV shows to know this was the interrogation room. It was a table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner, and this big window that I knew someone was behind watching us. And I'm sure the people behind it were just thinking, "Yep, that's the one that's gonna cry." So I'm just sitting there alone, trying to keep my cool. I look around for something, anything to distract me. But all I see is this sign on the wall that says, "Lying to an officer is a felony." Well, that's not good, because I knew the actual truth would just sound like one big lie to them. I don't know if they were trying to scare me with that sign, but it worked. Because the second the officer walks in and sits across from me, my brain goes blank. I couldn't even remember what city we were in. He leans forward and goes, "All right, once again, why don't you tell me exactly what happened?" And when I say I fumbled the bag, I mean I fumbled it, because I responded by saying, we were just at the mall and then Best Buy." I sounded like a record player that just got water spilt on it. I couldn't put a coherent sentence together to save my life. The cop squints at me like he's trying to figure out if I'm just dumb or guilty. At this point, I was already thinking about how I was gonna pose in my mugshot so that I looked good in it, because I knew that was where this was heading. But finally, I managed to choke out the whole story. How we were just looking around, how my friend must have just stuck it in my bag without me knowing, and the cop just listens to me, stone-faced, not saying anything at all. He asks me again, slower this time. "So you're saying you didn't know the laptop was in your bag?" I know he thinks I'm lying, but it's the truth. So I say, "Yeah, I had no idea. If you look at the footage real closely, you can tell I didn't see him even put it in there."
Today we're gonna do a delicious tomato toast. We're gonna use some ricotta cheese, feta cheese, some beautiful tomato from the farmer market, and I'm French, so we're gonna use some butter. First, what you wanna do, you're gonna cut your tomato.
Truth. So I say, "Yeah, I had no idea. If you look at the footage real closely, you can tell I didn't see him even put it in there." But right after I say that, the officer gives me this weird little smile, like the kind that made me think, oh no, he knows something that I don't. He stands up, leaves, and tells me he'll be back in a second. And this was the moment where I started to genuinely wonder if my friend set me up. Like, okay, if it was an accident, why didn't he say anything to me? Why did he just stand there like a mannequin the entire time? And I started piecing together what I thought happened in my brain. I'm like, wait, what if he's been planning this for weeks? What if he planted the laptop on me so I would get in trouble and he could, I don't know, steal my girlfriend or something? I'm just kidding. We all know I'm just kidding. But anyways, I didn't know what his objective was. And just when I'm about to have a full mental breakdown trying to figure all this out, the door opens again. But this time, 2 officers walk in, and they're holding a printed sheet of paper. They sit down and slide the paper across the table. It's a screenshot from the security footage. I lean in to look at it, and you know what it is? An image of my friend holding the laptop behind me while I'm looking at some headphones. But the catch? He's smirking in it, smiling like he just pulled off the heist of the century. I tried getting a couple words out, but they cut me off and go, we saw this whole video. After reviewing it, it doesn't look too good. What do you mean it doesn't look too good? Bro, I am the victim here. I start stammering like, but I didn't even... The other cop tells me to calm down and that they need to finish talking to my friend before they can make any final decisions. This made me super nervous because, like I said, I couldn't trust Harry anymore. So I didn't know what he was going to tell the cops. I thought they were going to come back with a jumpsuit and be like, put this on. You're doing 10 years. 20 minutes pass before they come back in the room and tell me to follow them. We walk down this long hallway and they take me into a different room. When I go inside, I see that Harry's in it. He's sitting there, pale as a ghost. And the energy in the room is tense. Like we're both trying our hardest not to look at each other. One of the officers sits us down and goes, okay, we've reviewed the footage and heard both sides. The truth is, the situation could have gone a lot worse. Normally, shoplifting something this expensive is charged as a felony. But given that you're both kids and you both have clean records, my heart's pounding. And the fact that Best Buy didn't want to press any charges, we've decided to let you off. That cop deserved 5 big booms after that. I flew back in my chair out of excitement like I just got hit with a tranquilizer dart. But then, of course, as we thought we were in the clear, the cop goes, that doesn't mean there won't be any consequences though. You guys are both banned from that Best Buy for a year. And if anything like this happens again, but before he could even finish, I go, nope, never again, officer. I'm never even gonna look at another computer in my life. I'm switching to notebooks, paper only. They walk us out to the lobby, and that's it. We're free. But even after we go outside, there's still one unanswered question. Why did Harry put that computer in my backpack in the first place, and why did he leave it in there when we walked out of the store? Well, finally, now that we knew we weren't in any sort of real danger, he told me that he snuck the computer into there because he wanted to do a magic trick on me. His plan was to magically make a computer appear in my backpack. But after he put it in there, he got distracted by something and literally just forgot that he ever did that. And that's when I realized Harry wasn't evil. He just had the attention span of a fly.
Lincoln was not an apple.
Bye guys, see you in the next video. Peace.